Hey, so everybody, we have a special guest on my show, and she's been on this show before. She's always been wonderful. Really good friend of mine, did a lot of healing work on my behalf, and I felt really supported by her. I think she's a deeply insightful person that everyone should get to know. So that's why she's here. Her name is Joyce. So, Joyce, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Leon. I feel that is a very heartwarming introduction. So,
Yeah, definitely a pleasure to have you on here. So today you want to talk about different kind of subjects, and I think one of the themes is about how can you find wholeness versus how do you find perfection. The other one's about we talked about this before about how you can center yourself more in what you want in your life versus what you don't want. So maybe we could get started with this. Why don't you tell us more about getting more centered in ourselves in terms of getting centered in what we want?
yeah, so I think we live in a society, especially in the Western world, where we know what we don't want more than what we want.
Mhm.
So we're told that we need to reach all these milestones in life, and we're given all this pressure. And so people have these really big standards of it's like what they're obligated to, but it's not necessarily what they want. And when you ask people what they want, people typically have a hard time telling you their daily wants. Our lives are lived in the present moment. So if we're not really wanting things daily, we're wanting something that's really abstract. And then at that point,
Hmm.
it's like you're delaying your happiness so far into the future that you're not even feeling it at all. And then what I find with today's people and with myself too, I had to learn this in a different way is that I really didn't know what I wanted, and I did know what I didn't want. Like I could name oh, that's away from the vision I have for my life, because we're kind of told that we need to have a vision for our lives. Whereas I think I've been learning a lot in my life that a lot of pleasure in life and happiness comes from being willing to explore the moment. And so being curious, being interested, and being open to the moment. And I think that's why meditation is something that's really popular nowadays too, because it allows you to be in this open frame. Nothing exists but the moment, whereas we're trained in the other way. So they're like, oh, just care about the future. And if you're not, then be worried that you're not caring
Yes.
enough about the future.
I
And
think you're
so
expressing this quite well. This is how I would experience it if I'm very focused on the future, on some sort of idea of how life is supposed to be, then I'm overcome by anxiety. So you're saying there's a different way to experience life, and that's more of a present-oriented way to experience it, and it would help set you free from anxiety.
yeah, and it's almost by trusting that being more attuned to the present moment will actually get you into the future that you want. This may actually help you with being more in the present moment. Because I think there's this fear that if we focus too much on the present moment, it's going to take us away from our future aims. Whereas I actually think sometimes it's the opposite way around. When we focus too much on the future and that's actually making us miserable, we actually don't know how to posture ourselves in a way that invites the kind of future we want to have that in our lives. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that we're looking for the love of our life and we're like, I have an idea of the kind of love that I want or the kind of career that I want. And it's stressing you out so much that you're not acting in such a way that the person you love would be even able to recognize you in the state that you're in. So if you actually are more positioned in the present moment and open to it, you're actually going to act not camouflaged so that the people that are meant to find you can have an easier time finding you because you actually act in accordance to your wants and you actually are yourself and not a mask. And so that when the right opportunity actually comes, you guys are able to actually notice each other. Because if you're striving so much towards the future, the thing that you wanted so much might actually be right in front of you. And because it's not the exact way that you thought it would be, you overlook it.
Hmm.
And so something I've learned about life is that I've had expectations for things where it's been radically different than what I thought it would be. But if I held so tightly to those expectations, I would be blind to the present moment and all the resources that are here.
Yeah, that's really beautifully said. So when you're talking, I was thinking along the lines of when you're present and you're exuding an energy that allows you to be able to attract what you want or who you want into your life because you're authentically as you are. If you're living in the future, it's easy to overlook things with the anxiety that you are prone to have in that state of mind.
Yeah, and what I'm saying might sound kind of woo-woo, but I actually think it's actually really grounded. So I see it as garbage in, garbage out. So if you aren't fully showing up in your life, you don't have the capacity to actually make the most out of the moment. There's the heart, the gut, and the body, and we miss that because we're very cerebrally focused in society. We think that we'll think our ways into a great life. We're like, oh, if I just framework everything, my future, every thought in my mind, it's like we're trained to window shop our emotions rather than feel our emotions. So I'll look at my emotions and analyze them rather than actually going in and feeling them. And for some people, it's creating somatic illnesses. For some people, it's creating anxiety problems, depression, or aimlessness. You don't really know the purpose for why you're doing things because our emotions tell us what our purpose is or what our values are so that we know what we're doing. But then we have people who feel very internally confused, myself included, because we didn't spend any time looking at our feelings because we thought we were looking at our feelings, but we were really like at a distance observing it in a very intellectually detached way because it's almost shameful to be in your feelings in today's society because we need to like work, we need to do. There's no time to sit and feel and honor yourself. But then what I noticed this create is that it creates a conundrum as to why are we doing things, and then it creates an existential crisis in everyone. So existential crises are on the rise. People are having these midlife crises really early on in life, nihilistic crises. They're like, I don't even know what the point is of me doing all of this. The reason why is we're not connected to ourselves. We're not connected to our own emotions. We're not connected to other people. And this lack of connection creates a lack of meaning because we're actually creatures that derive meaning from being social, from being connected, or even just being connected to ourselves. That's enough as well, too. And it seems like we have all these distractions in life that get us away from this genuine connection to all things. Mm-hmm. And then that makes us detached from the present moment.
Yeah. Well, hearing you speak, you're talking about the tendency today for us to be living outside of ourselves. We might be thinking that we could find ourselves outside of ourselves, but you're saying it's actually accessible right here, right now, that we could tune into ourselves, and when we could be present with ourselves and how we feel, that is living life, and it could overcome those feelings of existentialism.
It can definitely do that, yeah. And it can overcome feelings of loneliness. So sometimes when we're in a room full of people, but we still feel lonely, one of the most common causes is that we're not connecting to ourselves. So when we haven't taken the time to honor and see ourselves in our own experience as sacred, when we go out there, interaction with others may actually feel dissatisfying because we don't feel seen. We may not actually be seeing ourselves either, too, is the double-edged conundrum.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, a lot of people, they do feel lonely these days, and it causes a sense of desperation. So people are looking to connect.
Asking yourself more present-oriented questions like, am I enjoying this? Just wherever you are, and being able to know that basic truth is the first step towards knowing your state. Because I think in life we feel like we have to accomplish this huge thing to be happy, whereas you could just be happy now, just being. It just requires slowing down. And when you're in a society that tells you to speed up all the time, it's hard to find happiness when you're running past it. And so it really requires that slowing down that things like meditation naturally make you do in that practice. And so just having a moment where you're tuning in, you're slowing down to the beat of your emotions. So if you go too fast, you're actually speeding past your own feelings. which may feel nice if the feelings you feel are not that pleasant. Like that numbness may actually feel relieving, but living in a chronic state of numbness results in this lack of aliveness and maybe like a functional depression too. It feels like not really living. It feels like okay in the moment as you're running past and doing things, but when you slow down and you're actually with yourself, if it feels like the same sensation of dirty laundry inside yourself, it probably means that you're not connected to yourself.
Right. Yeah. I think perhaps the people are like running, they feel like they'll get faster to where they want to go. Perhaps they feel like they want to run towards what they think will make them happy. But what's actually happening is that they're numbing themselves to what's going on, and they are tricking themselves into believing that this happiness is something that's far away from them right now.
Yeah. And it's really an addictive cycle. So I think numbness is really chronic. I think a lot of people don't realize how numb that they are. And
Right.
so they have all these sorts of addictions. Running fast is an addiction. Sometimes going to a lot of events is an addiction. And it could be whatever it is. Watching Netflix could be an addiction, or it could not be as well, depending on what your motive is doing it. I'm just kind of illustrating that in life, I think this nihilism, this chronic existential crisis that society is dealing with is pointing at some sort of underlying numbness that's happening on a chronic scale, which is why yoga, mindfulness is becoming so popular, because people are desperate for tools in this time. And we do all these things that numb ourselves out, that we're in chronic need of being sensitized again. Like we need to become more sensitive. And
Right.
a way to do that is actually connecting with yourself. Like it's not to become overly sensitive, but it's to not obstruct yourself from what's actually naturally occurring inside yourself.
You're talking about some sort of paradigm shift because I guess in this day and age, everything's about running many miles as fast as you can right now, and technology supports that. And like, there's this idea that faster is better. What people are they're starving for is a sense of being able to slow down and actually find their center, and somehow trusting that the answers lie within that center without having to grasp onto having to move quickly in life. If we could trust ourselves to be able to slow down, then we'll be closer to what we want than if we're running at top speed.
And it's also when people are slowing down, they don't know what to do when they slow down. Like, let's say if someone is just sitting there, they're like, how do I connect with myself? I'm doing it. I'm just sitting here. I think there needs to be a certain posture for people to actually tune into themselves. So I had help in that I took psychedelics and it helped me tune into myself so that I knew that there was anything inside me. Before, I wasn't even sure if I had any emotions or like what was inside. But then after mushrooms, I was like, oh, there's definitely feelings inside there. And that actually made me curious about going inside. So I think people really need some sort of catalyst for them to even know something is inside themselves. Like, let's say, for example, a divorce or losing a job, like something that stirs up the numb emotions inside, that they finally feel that hope or that kind of realization or curiosity that they can go inside. Because it can feel so daunting if you're so numb, you might not actually feel like you can yet. So it was like a huge journey of unnumbing myself. And I think one of the most helpful things was actually friendship. So the irony is sometimes connecting with yourself can help you connect with others, but sometimes the other way around is true too. Sometimes connecting with others can help us connect more with ourselves. So like having friends actually point out in real time when I'm doing certain numbing things actually helped me with being more accountable to myself. I'll give you an example. So I had this friend who loved me a lot and was like, oh, I love you a lot, but I also noticed that you feel unlovable too. And you hold these two thoughts simultaneously, and I can feel you hold these two thoughts, but then eventually feeling unlovable wins out, and I can sense the exact micro moment that this happens for you. And so I think sometimes we need a wake up call, or like it's so numbing ourselves, or at least for myself, was so autopilot that you need something to shake you out of that autopilot to like notice that you're numb in certain areas, because you just get used to it and you're like, this is fine, when it's really not fine. You're like that dog in that house that's burning and with that mug, and it's the meme, and the dog is like, everything is fine as the house is burning down. And I feel like this is the experience of numb people. They are just like content numb until you realize the inner misery that you're actually dealing with. But you don't know you're miserable when you're numb. That's the paradox.
It helps to have people who care about you, who are compassionate, to be able to give you feedback. It kind of makes me think about the stages of grief in a way, because I think when we lose the numbness, we're losing some former aspect of ourselves. Like we're used to running quickly, we're used to numbing ourselves out. So I can imagine it's like a process, right? So to denumb, why I say grief is that sometimes people's response to loss is to numb themselves, and it's actually a coping mechanism, it's a way to survive. Later on, they go through a phase where they start to have almost like a calling within that tells them it's important to process your emotions now.
So it seems like we're living in a society that doesn't know how to process loss, and so we go numb. And I wonder if loss can be very abstract. Like, you don't have to have anyone die in your life to experience loss. We actually go through loss every single day. So, like, let's say you go through life, you do a decision that kind of betrays your inner wants or needs. That's like, in a way, a sense of grief or loss can be there, because it's like, there's a sense of loss from feeling a sense of self-betrayal. So you're losing a sense of self-trust or self-love every time you kind of do that. Or let's say if you grew up with childhood trauma, then the loss there is you lost a sense of innocence, that people who usually get to be children, they get to live their childhood, whereas like you have to grow up too quick and you have to be
Right.
like maybe a parent or an adult. That's a sense of loss. So sometimes we don't notice the micro losses going on in our lives.
We don't pay attention to them because it's a lot to pay attention to. I guess people don't want to have that feeling of being overwhelmed.
How do people deal with things without getting too overwhelmed? And I think one of the solutions is that with grief, it's not meant to be experienced on your own. So let's say, I kind of like to entertain this paradigm that our feelings are not our own, in the sense that we're meant to carry them with other people. So like when it comes to hard feelings like shame or grief, when you try to process it alone, sometimes it's actually too overwhelming to experience it just by yourself. Like I find that I start to go cerebral when I try to process feelings alone. So it's kind of like, oh, I think I'm experiencing the shame. I guess I can understand the components. I can get very precise with my self-analysis, with my emotions in my head. But usually what's easiest is actually holding shame or holding grief in a community or with others, because then it's almost like we're feeling for each other. It becomes more of like a heart-based thing rather than trying to think our way into feeling, which is
Right.
kind of like forcing an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And there are still ways to tune into our own emotional experience alone. Like there's loving kindness meditation that gets you to feel good feelings alone. When it comes to like the really negative feelings,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's most helpfully processed with others if it gets to a certain threshold of overwhelm.
What you're advocating for is to be able to live in a interdependent kind of world, in the sense that there's a lot of emphasis right now placed on independence and being able to take care of things yourself. I guess the theme I'm seeing here is this ability to trust others, or to trust in the process, or trust in your emotions, something that's beyond the mind or this top-down control. People outside of us exist for a reason. We're community-based creatures, and to be able to trust in that and allow healing, open yourself up to the healing that could be realized through this process of community and internal, like being able to sit with your emotions more.
Yeah, precisely so. I think that when we live in a more community-based way, we naturally have a sense of meaning. So I think the opposite of nihilism is community. You don't find people who are really healthily in a community super deep in nihilism. So like people who are very deep in life has no purpose and they feel it down to their bones are typically people who feel isolated and lonely.
Hmm.
So
And they're in that, perhaps they're in a work environment that focuses on a lot of demand and not on the human aspect.
yeah, being seen as a transaction or being seen as an object rather than a human.
We could change how things go in terms of the direction of there's always been paradigm shifts in history, and there would be another one in which we're more focused on what's human.
And I think that that's happening right now. So a lot of places are focusing on community. They're trying their hardest to build it in this time. The third
Mhm.
space movement, and
Now, what's that?
it's basically people are trying to create these spaces where people can meet for free. So the thing is, usually when people gather as communities, they have to pay something. So it's kind of like most people meet their friend groups at bars and they have to pay an exorbitant amount of money, which makes it
Right.
hard for people to have community because they don't even know where to house it in that sense. So there are a lot of people having, or at least in Toronto right now, there are living room initiatives where people are volunteering their living rooms for people to meet. And so this is creating this ability for people to meet for like very low cost or for free so that we can just prioritize being with each other. I've been running these cool experiments with friends where we're kind of testing what it means to be in the present with each other. So a few weeks ago, I was just with a group of friends and we didn't speak at all for a few hours and we were just communicating through gesture or minimal things. And it actually helps us slow down to be with each other. So the only time we were allowed to talk is in a caveman way. So me, stick, like. And so through that, you kind of learn that connection is very simple. Like we try to connect through a lot of content, which is great too. Sometimes when we're having trouble connecting to our own feelings or to ourselves, slowing down even more helps. So like reducing speech or reducing expectation may help us connect with our own feelings. Because if we're dealing with too much expectation, we're numbing ourselves out. Like someone who's a chronic people pleaser may not be able to tap into their inner experience because that expectation is too high for them. And so for them to actually feel their feelings, they have to be like, I don't care about pleasing you guys. We're just going to stay silent the whole time and do what we want together.
Yeah, that sounds really beautiful. I really now want to try that out. When you first told me about it, that seemed like really intimidating and to be around people and not talk. But I think maybe it's worth it. I guess the final thing here, we've talked a bit before about this idea of wholeness versus perfection. And as you're talking, I can make that connection, right? You're basically talking about that theme. Wholeness is something that is within, and perfection is probably something that is that abstract thinking process that's outside of yourself.
Yeah. And we've kind of lost sight of the definition of perfection. I had someone tell me that the root word behind perfection was completeness, I believe. And so you are perfect because you are complete. And when we start to try to chase perfection outside of ourselves, then we lose the point. We're basically telling ourselves we're not whole if we say that we need to get things perfect to be happy. And so you are whole as you are. Like you don't have to do something to need to be happy or to be perfect or to be complete. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like we mix up wholeness and excitement. So like we're doing all these things that make us excited. Like let's say maybe hitting off a bunch of things on your to-do list make us feel super excited. Going to a really vivacious party or event makes us feel really excited. And it's easily confused for a feeling of wholeness. Whereas like wholeness and excitement both feel great, but then wholeness feels like you feel good even when you're not at that party. You feel good even when you're not doing all of the things on your to-do list because you're worthy of love. You're worthy of feeling good. And I think to feel whole, yeah, it really gets you to think about your relationship with love. If we haven't experienced attuned love with our caregivers, we may not feel whole. And so, for instance, me and my friend had a conversation around what is love, and she broke it down into 3 parts that I love. And it's the first part of love is recognizing the value. And then the second part of love is caring about the well-being or caring about the value, caring about the dignity of the thing. So like, let's say if you're talking about loving a piece of artwork, you both see the value in the artwork and then you do things to maintain the dignity. Like, I don't know, like if it's getting dirty, you like kind of clean it, or you don't use it for AI consumption, like you keep it pure in some sort of way. And then the third component to love is wishing well for the thing. So like if it was the art piece, like you hope that many people get to see the wonderful art piece. It's amazing and valuable. You need all of 3 of these things for it to be the purest form of love. And I think a lot of people haven't really experienced that in their lives. And so they kind of go, I need to be worthy of love by getting this thing in the future, and then that other thing, and then finally I'll get this love I've wanted. Like, I know emotions have been a murky field for me because whenever I would experience love, it would also feel bad. I'm like, if this is love, then why does it feel so bad to receive it? And then I realized that what I was receiving wasn't actually love when I like broke it down conceptually. Like, oh, I don't think I've ever really been valued. I don't think anyone's really cared about my well-being actually. And I don't think people have actually wished well for me. So I can understand why I've never really been acquainted with love, and I've always been searching for love outside of myself in that kind of way. When it comes to perfection, it comes down to I need to do this perfectly or I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. And it's like, usually it's of I'm not good enough for love. And then you go into this whole like existential inquiry into like, whoa, that's deep. That requires some work.
So it's very interesting and fascinating how like this feeling of lack of love could result in elements of today. Like one thing that's common is this idea of the fear of missing out. This idea that just all these check boxes we need to check off in order to feel like we are complete.
Yeah. Exactly. We'll be worth it when we check off these boxes. There's some sort of identity in you're only worth it if this, like conditional worth, conditional love. I don't know, things to think about there for sure.
Joyce, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Another great discussion. If you want to check out Joyce's work, I'll post it down below. Joyce works as a life coach, and she has this channel on personality typology in which she shares her insights. She's always really great to listen to. I always really enjoy talking with her. Thank you for being on the show, Joyce.
Thank you. It was really nice.